Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She is the author of the book A Story About Pizza, no other than Miss Erica D'Arcangelo. Welcome to Book 101, Miss Erica. Can you please introduce more about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Daniel. I'm Erica D'Arcangelo. I'm the author of a story about pizza and also a children's book called Pietro's Pizza.
Hmm. So, Miss Erica, what inspired you to write a story about pizza?
So, my grandfather was an Italian immigrant. He came over from Abruzzo, Italy, around 1910 with his family, and he actually went to work in the coal mines. And his dream was to open a pizzeria. So, this story follows his journey of his life and if he achieves this dream to open the pizzeria.
Yes, definitely. Pizza, pizza everywhere, a famous one. So, how did you depict the challenges of Pietro face as a coal miner?
Well, when I was living in Pennsylvania, I went home for a year when my father had heart surgery. I started
Yes.
going to our family pizzeria, and my dad would tell me all the stories about my grandfather and the coal mines. And I went into the restaurant and I saw all the old relics and all the things that he kept. And I just started to research the coal mines and I was able to really replicate the story of how his life was. I mean, he was pulled out of school at 9 years old and he worked in the mines from 9 years old until he was probably in his early 40s.
Mm. So, in what ways does the narrative illustrate the merging of Italian and American culture through the lens of pizza?
So, really captures, I think, both Italian and American culture because it was my grandfather, his three brothers, his parents, and they basically go on this journey as an Italian family immigrating to America and kind of having these same Italian customs, but also learning these different American customs along the way. And just almost just shows the story of the family.
Mm. Yes, definitely. So, how does the establishment of the Arts Pizza Shop serve as the symbol of perseverance and the pursuit of American dream?
Well, I mean, my grandfather's dream his whole life was to open this pizzeria, and he came over from Italy. He had nothing, worked in the coal mines, he was very poor, and he really just never gave up on his dream. And then the outcome is this pizzeria that's now been there for now 70 years. And he wanted to have a legacy and something he passed down to his family, and that's what this pizzeria was for him.
So, how did you use a motif of a pizza to explore the themes of love, community, and culture identity?
Well, in my book, pizza and Italian food and just food in general was kind of the thing that ties everything together. Each chapter, the characters are making some type of an authentic dish. And at the end of that chapter, there's a recipe that goes along with that. And so it really follows the culture and tradition with the family and food married to it.
Hmm, certainly. So, in what ways does the book highlight the broader history of Italian immigration to the United States in the early 1900s?
Well, it follows the journey from Abruzzo when they go onto the boat, when they arrive in Ellis Island in New York. And then, as they kind of get used to being in the country and they go to this place where there's work, which is the Berwind-White coal mines, which is probably about 6 hours outside of New York. And it just goes through this immigration journey of this whole family from not only the parents, but also the four boys.
Hmm, yes. So, how does Pietro's story reflect the experience of many immigrants seeking a better life in America during that era?
Well, it really follows it because I think a lot of immigrants came over during that time because they wanted a better life. But when they got to America, the reality of that for a lot of them it wasn't the case, because I know, like, for my grandfather, he was pulled out of school at 9 years old. He had to work in the coal mines, in the elements in Western Pennsylvania in the winter. And there were safety issues, there were child labor issues. And I think a lot of these things that happened, they weren't things that were expected when people initially came over from different countries.
Mm, yes. So, what challenges did Italian immigrants like Pietro face in adapting to American society? And how are these challenges depicted in the book?
Sure. So there were challenges with education, with money, with speaking the language. And what it really shows is just a matter of personality. Like, some individuals came over and it was really difficult for them to adapt to the fact that maybe it wasn't what they expected when they came over. And then there were other people, like my grandfather, for instance, he never complained. And even though he had to go through these difficult things, he maintained a really good attitude and he continued to progress and work towards his goal.
Certainly. So, how does the narrative address the concept of cultural preservations amidst of assimilation to a new country?
Well, it addresses it because a lot of the traditions that were the Italian traditions, like the foods and the, going to church on Sunday and having Sunday dinner and having the traditional holiday meals, all those things, they stayed with the family. And there are things that were not only with the family as they came over from Italy, but things that were then passed down to our family, things we really still do today.
Hmm. Yes. Tradition. In what ways does or in what ways that you convey the significance of food, particularly pizza, in maintaining cultural connections and traditions?
Well, pizza is really the center of it all. So the book goes through this, beginning where Pietro, who's my grandfather, he stops and he gets his last slice of pizza when he's in Abruzzo. And then when he gets to New York, the first thing he eats is pizza. And
Mm,
then
yes.
throughout, his life and these hardships, he keeps thinking about pizza and he keeps wanting to make pizza. And then someday he finally makes the move to do this, and that becomes his life. And it's really built on this love of pizza and this love of food.
So, how does Pietro's entrepreneurial spirit influence his family's legacy and community around him?
He really set an example for all the people around him because he was very caring about others and he was very hardworking. And even now today, like, that's where I learned hard work, was from him and from my parents. And so I think when kids are growing up, they really watch to see what their families do, and it really molds them for the future. So this is kind of what was passed down, of just this like hardworking entrepreneurial spirit.
So, Miss Erica, the pizzeria that your grandfather established is still alive, still in business?
Yeah, it's still open.
That's awesome. So, what
Yeah.
lessons about resilience and determination can readers draw from Pietro's experiences?
Well, there's two things. So the first thing is to never give up on your dream. I mean, my grandfather worked most of his life in the coal mines. He opened this pizzeria. Here we are 70 years later, still open, still family owned and operated. And then the second thing is that nothing good comes out without hardship. Like,
Hmm.
that is just part of the journey, is to experience hardship. And the more you want to do, the more hardship you're going to experience.
Yes, it's not a matter of luck, people. Hardship. If you want to earn millions of money, you need to do hardship. So, how did you incorporate historical context to enhance the reader's understanding of the immigrant experience?
So I wrote the book. I outlined the historical timeline of the time that my grandfather came over, or when he was born, and then when he came over to America, and then, kind of the age. And then he opened up the pizzeria. He actually bought the building in 1955. He opened up a Italian market. Then 1960, he opened up the pizzeria. And passed away around 1999, and he was, I think, 84 years old when he passed away.
Oh. So, in what ways does the story celebrate the contributions of Italian American to American culture and society?
So, it really celebrates the contributions through food. For example, there right before they opened the market, my grandmother and my great grandmother, they would set up a little market station and they would bake bread and they would sell different Italian foods. And then when the market opened, they would bake different things. And even after opening the pizzeria, it was just like this celebration of family and community through food, which has lasted even to now. Because even now, we still have the pizzeria. My mom, she owns a jam business. We still make the homemade bread. So all these traditions still happen today.
Mm, awesome. Tradition, tradition. So, Miss Erica, what would be your advice for those people out there who want to write their own story?
I would say the first thing that start with is really organizing your story in an outline, but there's also a marketing aspect of writing where you have to establish yourself as an author. And that was one thing I did this after the fact of writing my book. But if I had to do it over again, probably a year before I published my book, I would have been starting to establish myself as an author because marketing is a big part of how you sell books.
Yes,
Like there's so many authors, they put books out and they're amazing books, but they can't put them in people's hands because the marketing is missing.
yes, that's true. It's easy to produce book, but marketing is so hard. That's why Book 101 Review is here, especially for indie authors. So, how does the depiction of the Ark's Pizza Shop serve as the microcosm of the immigrant pursuit of success and acceptance?
Well, D'Arc's Pizza was, open, founded by Italian immigrants and passed down through generations, through families. So it definitely encompasses the culture of immigration where somebody comes into a new country. And I mean, we have 70,000 family owned pizzerias in America. And all of these individuals, their families, they came from somewhere.
Mm, yes, definitely. So, Miss Erica, what will be your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
So my short-term goals are to finish publishing my children's series, which is going to be the 12 books. And I have one book out and another book that will be out probably in the next 3 months. And then my long-term goal is to get my novel finished and get my novel launched. But I also have a pizza podcast. So that's so ongoing short term. And I interview family owned pizzerias and just, pizza reviewers and people who are professionals and experts in Italian culture.
Awesome. So, did you publish your children's book already? Can you share to us? Can you show to us
Yeah,
the
sure. It just came out on February 9th, which is National Pizza Day. So this is a little mini,
Yay!
and we have a bigger
Yes.
version too, but this is the paperback.
Congratulations, Miss Erica, for another milestone.
Thank you.
Pietro's Pizza.
Yeah.
So, Miss Erica will be again another episode with me, and let's talk about Pietro's Pizza coloring book. Is it a
Yeah.
coloring book?
I have so the coloring book, this is the coloring book and it goes with the book.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I'm inviting you again to come back and let's talk about that separately. So, what narrative techniques does Erica D'Arcangelo, or I mean yourself, to employ a create engaging, heartfelt story?
So the narrative for me is going over and really having like the main character, which is the protagonist, and setting up the antagonist and the supporting characters. And with writing, I think like anything else is like an evolution.
Yes.
You storyboard out the characters, the chapters, what you want to write in each chapter. And I really love the process because the process of the narration. It's just like a storytelling narration, which is very nice, very therapeutic to do for, I think, a lot of writers.
So, if you describe Erica D'Arcangelo as a writer, what are they?
I think the writing is going to be very positive, very charismatic, and it's going to really take you back to where these things happened and a lot of detail. So you really know, like you feel like you're there. And any book that I've read, when you feel like you're there, I feel like it's the best kind of a book.
Yes, certainly. Excellent book for sure. So, how does the book explore the theme of identity, both personal and cultural, through Pietro's journey?
The book explores identity because Pietro comes over to America as a young boy. And at the time, he doesn't really know what his identity is. He knows he loves pizza. He goes into the coal mines and he's not happy. This isn't his purpose in life. He knows what he wants to do. And as he grows, he more and more goes through his identity. I want to say identity crisis, but he starts to really know who he is and what he wants and what he wants to do because he has all this time to think about it.
Mm, for sure. In what ways does the story about pizza highlight the importance of community support in achieving personal and professional goals?
Well, a story about pizza, it really relies on the community because DR's Pizza in Windber opened up in 1960, and the same families have supported that business for 65, 70 years. And, the grandson, the granddaughter of the initial person who would come into the shop, they still come in there. And it's just been through generations of the community who a lot of them are also immigrants from Abruzzo, Italy.
Hmm. So, Miss Erica, before we wrap up our discussion, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101, in its fifth season, people, fifth season, with my co-host, Chef Alessandro Panantoni, one of the specialty chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our latest episode. We talk about, or we're reading all the letters senders that our listeners giving us all over the world. So please do listen, Food 101. So, Miss Erica, how does a story about pizza inspire readers to reflect on their own cultural heritage and a universal quest for belongings?
So the story about pizza does this because it follows a man who is an immigrant and he comes from somewhere, and every person has their own story of where their families came from, of the traditions, of the culture that they were brought up with, and then keeping those things alive. So no matter where you're from, that message can resonate with you.
Yes. Miss Erica D'Arcangelo, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. And I'm looking forward for our next episode. Let's talk about your children's book. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find everything by searching for a story about pizza. You can go to a storyabouttpizza.com or anywhere on social media. It's just a story about pizza.
Story about pizza. Yes, let's support Miss Erica D'Arcangelo because if you support her, more empowering pizza to come. So, Miss Erica, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daniel.
More to come, people. See you soon.